Welcome to Eighth World. Thank you guys for pulling up and watching and clicking the link. So this is a show that spawned out of nowhere. Honestly, these two got behind the mic, and so we're here to produce for you guys and bring you guys new content. So I'm your host, Keith.
I'm your host, Dahlia.
And I'm your host, Whitney.
Yep, and we're going to be talking all things life, love, career, and relationship that we're learning and navigating through trial and error.
Much cheaper than therapy. Much cheaper than therapy.
And so today we got a special subject that touches home to a lot of our hearts.
It does for me.
You know, crashing out, specifically with your parents. All right, we're all first-gen Americans, so we feel like it's super important,
Vital.
critical to your personality developing. You need to crash on your parents.
And I know everyone's like, can we do like a like a sound like when they're like doing that?
I got you.
But yeah, they be. Why would you do that? They gave you life.
Oh, okay. Backtrack. What is crashing out to y'all? Like when you say crashing out on your parents, I need to know. There are multiple definitions for crashing out.
I think for me is basically setting a boundary, but obviously you're more passionate because it's like the boundary has been spoken probably more than once, maybe more than twice.
You mean like broken? They broke the boundary?
Yeah, they broke the boundary. And now it's like because they gave birth to you, because they are the parent, the
Omega
provider,
in your
the
life,
Omega, whatever, then they feel like whenever you step away from what they think is proper for a child to act, then they get upset. But they have to understand too, at a certain point, we're going to be adults at the same time for a long time. And respect goes both ways. Doesn't matter whose child, whose parent, whose dog, whose cat. Like, respect has to be there. And so for me, once you start crossing boundaries 1,000,000,001 times, it's time to crash out.
So what is that for you? I feel like for me personally, I feel like it's just standing up for yourself.
Yeah, standing up for yourself.
You know, so
1,000%.
All right.
and you have to assert dominance when you stand up for yourself, though. That's the thing. You can't just be like,
But
no, but I don't. You talk back, and you know,
be like,
as
bitch, you
African
gonna
parents, with African parents, specifically me speaking for myself, they're not gonna go for that. They're not going for that.
They're
meek
gonna
shit.
they're
That meek
gonna
shit's not
step on your
sliding. Yeah, they're gonna
head.
step on you like. So
y'all look at crashing out as boundary setting a boundary with a parent or a caregiver on what's appropriate and what you'll
It's not like
condone
setting the
and what you're
boundary,
not.
but like reiterating the boundary so like they actually understand, they hear it, like they can't ignore it, because now your energy is not it's not a low energy or a small energy where it's like like they don't
So
care.
let's take this back, right? When you say boundary, what kind of boundaries are we talking about?
Like, let's say I'm upset about something. For me, I like to be alone. I don't want anyone to bother me because, one, I don't like having that type of energy around other people. So I like to seclude myself. You're coming in my room. You see I'm physically, like, irritated. I say, respectfully, like, give me a moment, blah, blah, blah. You don't respect that. And it's not like, because in that moment she doesn't respect it, now I'm going to crash out. No, it's a repetitive behavior of you not listening to the boundary that I'm setting. And now I'm going to react because I've said it nicely, quote unquote, multiple times, and it's not clicking. The lights are on and no one's home. So now we're going to crank this bitch up. We're going to crank this bitch up, and that's it. Take it as you will. I'm sorry. I said what I said.
That's wild. So I have to take it back to ChatGPT because I'm on a completely different page on what crashing out is. So y'all know I asked ChatGPT.
okay.
For
Let's see what they
everything.
say.
So I said simple answer only. What's a crash out? ChatGPT said a crash out refers to abruptly failing or being eliminated from something like a competition or losing control in a dramatic way, such as an accident, right? Or a car accident. So what I took away from that is like drastically failing at something, not being in alignment with someone's authority.
No, I feel
I
like
don't
crashing
agree.
out. Crashing out really is like you either ruined your life, like you crashed out. Like I went. Imagine if I just got up and shot somebody. That's like crashing out because my life is over. or
Like
something.
you're reactive. That's
You're
what
reactive,
it's
yeah.
making it sound like you're reactive, but there's no like real validation of why you're reacting.
Yeah, but isn't that what a crash out is? Is someone who reacts so strongly
Yes,
and abruptly to
you're
Yes
strongly-
and
that's why.
no.
That's what it's like. You're standing up. That's why. That's where the dominance comes
the boundary
in.
and the
Yes.
okay.
That's where the dominance comes in.
Ooh, okay. Because I also asked. I said simple answer only. How do children crash out on their parents? It said children, quote unquote, crash out on their parents when they suddenly fall asleep. And I said, not that type of crash out. My bad. It's a, I got it. Exclamation point. When children crash out on their parents, it means they act out of emotional meltdown, seeking tenderness, attention, frustration, vice versa. Right? So kind of like an emotional reaction to that parent's authority, essentially. So
So
is
a
that what
temper
y'all-
tantrum.
Yeah,
I
that's what
wouldn't-
I look at.
I mean, yeah, but it's a more mature version of it. You feel me? Like, there's a reason why you're upset, and in response to
It's
you
a
being
valid
upset,
temper
yeah,
tantrum?
it's a valid.
Ew, that's weird to say. I'm
Yeah.
having a temper
That's why I said
tantrum.
crash out. So I don't know if so
Ugh.
crash out. What I'm taking out of it is like, at what point should you stand up and set a boundary for yourself with your parents, specifically foreign parents? I feel like that's the conversation that we're having right there. And that's a subject which is really real to a lot of us, specifically us being, we all happen to be first generation of West African descent. And that's something that's really big in our community as children. You know, at what point do we stand up towards our immigrant parents and go against the grain and say, you know what? I
I'm
don't like
not
how
gonna
things are
ask
being-
you
Yeah.
permission to go to the club at age 23. I'm not going to say,
Right.
Mom, can my friend come over?
Right. And I'm not gonna, listen to you when you say you don't like me wearing locks or whatever the case is, or the music that I wear, or the pant. Like, at what point should you set that boundary and go against the grain?
I feel like at age, I feel like 21, bare minimum. You shouldn't have to check in with your parents when you go through things. Like,
I say
yeah.
18 for, well, it depends on,
Because guess what?
depends.
Listen. Because if you do not crash out, your parents have that authority over you, right? Crashing out brings autonomy, right?
You're expressing your autonomy.
100%. So you get that freedom and you can do whatever you want. See, I can get up and go travel. I can get up and go buy a ticket and go to New York. I'm not going to ask my mom and dad permission to go to New York at age 25. That's ridiculous. And there's kids older than me.
Yeah.
I know somebody. I know somebody. She's 26. My nigga. 26 she's 26. Hispanic. You know, their parents are strict too. I get it. But my nigga, she says she's only allowed out on Thursdays and Fridays. Does that make sense? This girl has a high paying, she's making some money. You're making $70K a year and you're not allowed out on Thursday and Friday?
I need you to stop.
No, like,
Come,
please.
yo.
We have to be so
like,
for
be
real.
for real. Crash out.
Oh my God.
Move out. Matter of fact, move out. Like,
But no, okay, you bring up a valid point, because in order to crash, you have to be at a specific place in life where you can crash out. So I may be old school in comparison to y'all. I'm one of those late crash outers. I'm one of those late go against the grain kids. But I feel like what we're talking about in our conversation is like, okay, at what point do you just stand up to yourself with your immigrant parents, whether that's with the things you like, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, the vision that you have for yourself and for your life. At what point do you go against the grain and say like, okay, I love you, but I'm choosing not to live like this anymore. Right. And I feel like I was one of those late to the game. I was in like my mid 20s and still kind of like on eggshells, like, oh, they don't like me doing things like going to therapy. They don't like me doing XYZ. I was so self-conscious in all the decisions that I made because I was scared to essentially be myself around them in fear of whatever it was. But I feel like in order to like fully crash out on your parent, like you have to be at a certain position in life. And it's easier to do that after you move out and when you're no longer financially dependent on these people. But if you're completely like, I would never recommend somebody crash out at 17 years old. Crash out when you're fully financially dependent on these people. I feel
Smart. Yep.
yeah,
I
like
agree
you
with
have
that
to be
personally.
you have to be strategic about it. And you
Some-
also have to know your family background because I think some dynamics you could do that at 16, 17, 18. It's safe enough to do that. But in other dynamics, like it's not
But
like,
what do
don't-
you truly gain? Because like in the situation that Keith just said about his friend, 26, because like if she would have crashed out years before, she wouldn't be in the situation in her
Hell no.
mid 20s. You can't leave on Thursday and Friday. That's what happens when you're like, oh, I'm not ready, or I'm not in a position. Now you subconsciously convinced yourself that
I think
you
it's
still.
it ends up being like
It's
a
a
mental
mental thing.
It ends up being like a mental thing of you feel like if you go against the grain, you may be ostracized, you may be unloved, you may be shunned.
But
like,
that's why it's like you. It's I don't even say I don't want to say even an age. It's when you realize that you're done feeling horrible. Like everyone, like when you have like this weird like relationship with your parents or whoever that is your caretaker, and it's like you just feel uncomfortable with yourself. You feel like you have to second guess every decision.
You're on eggshells.
You're on
Yeah.
eggshells. It's like at what point are you going to just be like,
You
yo,
can't be your
like
authentic
you
self
can't do
either.
shit. Me personally, I'm not waiting till, oh, I don't depend on these people anymore. Because either way, it's going to be a struggle regardless of how you look at it.
So
But
listen,
you,
listen.
But that's you, because some people, there are consequences for crashing out, right? So the consequences some people face is, all right, now you're not in alignment with the value system that I have in my household, right? You're choosing to live under my roof and you're disobeying me. I'm not going to pay for XYZ.
But
I'm
what-
no
how
longer
is it-
support you in this way? So that it's a trade-off. And that's why I said I would never tell someone to like, you need to crash out, because there are consequences that come with that. And it's different in
1000%.
every
There's
family
a consequence in
dynamic.
any time
So you're
you do
not
it.
pro crash out.
I'm pro be smart because like I'm not gonna tell you to crash out.
I don't think there's being smart and
I
crashing
think
out in
I'm pro
general.
crash
as a
out.
result of your
Are you
crash
dating
out.
you?
Now you
I'm
don't
pro
have
crash out
somebody-
for
Alright.
sure.
I'm
Crash the fuck out, but at least like this is what I'm saying. Like there's
Crash
gonna be a
out with
consequence.
caution.
No, because there's gonna be a
consequences
consequence regardless.
regardless.
You can be
Deal with
25.
that shit.
You can be 35. You can be 12. There's gonna be a consequence. Like I'm not saying like okay, do it at this time. You're gonna know when to do it.
Okay, but like
Yeah,
for say,
that's true.
what age did you guys crash out?
17.
Dahlia? Dahlia, you? What age, Dahlia? Speak the truth.
2-3 years ago, like
So what age? Tell us.
mid-20s. Like
The
it was-
specific age.
I don't really. I think it was like 20. This is embarrassing. It was like 24, and it was like a halfway crash out. It wasn't a full. It was just like, you know what?
You slammed the door behind.
Oh, please. My household. First of all, let's the first things first. Crashing out looks different in every dynamic, and it's really important. So not just like, okay, we're all first gen, right? We all happen to be first gen at this couch or at these tables or at these mics, but our first gen experiences are very different. So let that be known, right? I come from a baby boomer parenting, right? To where it's just like on my father's side, he immigrated to America when he was my age, almost 30 years old, right? So this is a man who's already set in his ways in a kind of like rigid, structured, more like disciplined, it is what it is, like my way or the highway type mentality. And my mom comes from like a Caribbean background. So she's more so like more of the passive one, more of the laid back one, but kind of left the parenting to him, right? So even though we all come from first gen backgrounds, the dynamic is a little bit different. And I'll let y'all tell your experience a little bit more. And then we can go into, okay, why crashing out looks different in both of the households, because what the consequences will look like in my crash out, what's at stake versus your crash out.
That makes
So
sense.
yeah, what was your like? What's your background a little bit like?
Keith, you go first.
I don't think I actually crashed out. Honestly, she's my older sister.
By the
If
way.
you didn't know, I feel like she crashed out, so I don't have to crash out.
She walked so
So
you
it
can
was
run.
perfect.
Literally.
She walked. Yeah, she sprinted, so I can get off.
I skipped
feel me?
and
Okay,
jumped.
wait.
and-
So what's y'all's background though? Like, what is
So-
it?
I'm Ghanaian,
Ghanaian.
so
Both
Okay.
parents.
both
Both
parents. But our dad came here when he was like 15, so he has like he's more cultured to America. He's adapted.
So he's
My mom came
assimilating.
here when she was like 25, 26.
26, yeah.
So she's not
Wow.
as assimilated.
Yeah.
So that you gotta tell them how you crashed out,
Oh god.
because
So this was senior year, and obviously this is a time for SATs. This is a time for looking for college, blah blah blah. And I didn't like my GPA. Like, it was average, but I'm like, I don't want to be applying to these schools and wasting time. Like, first of all, you have to send $75 every single, like, who's doing that? Just for them to reject me when I know they're going to reject me. So to save myself from that, I wanted to go to community college, get my shit up, and then transfer. That became a whole debacle in my household because that's not something my dad agreed with. He wanted go to 4-year college, da da da. I didn't agree with that.
go to a big 4-year college.
Yeah.
Mind you, at that.
Mind you, not just any 4-year college, a known one. Why? We won't get into that. That's a conversation for another day. But I didn't agree. And you would think like, okay, your dad and you just butt heads. No, it became a problem when you involve other family members that do not live in our house. That's when it becomes a problem. And I did not appreciate that. Because now you're bringing people that they don't even talk to me on a regular basis, and then you're trying to get them to basically manipulate me and make me feel like shit for the decision that I made as a grown person. So now, to set the tone, you about to get your ass whooped verbally. Because why are we doing this? Like,
So explain. Go into detail. Let's go.
I don't want to go.
Wrap it
into
up. Wrap it up. Let's go into it. Let's go into it. Let's talk
Long
about
story short, I cussed so good and I cussed so amazing that day.
Shout out.
Hey, I cussed that man out so bad.
it. Our father.
My dad. And my mom came into the room with a Bible in hand. And she said, you don't talk to your dad like that. He loves you guys. He will do anything for you guys. I said, Mom, do you want it too? Because I can literally, you can receive the same treatment. Please leave me alone. And she walked away.
We are not condoning any of this. Let's just
I'm never
say.
saying to do how I did it, but
See, I'm a moderate. I kind of want you to crash out, but not that hard.
no,
You feel
I
me?
know me. Something about me. It's either 0 to 100. There's no 50 because I do 50 the second time around.
I'm a baby crash out.
It's 0, 50, 100.
I gotta warm myself up. To the
I
crazy.
literally give warnings and everyone's ah, hee hee ha ha kiki kiki until now I'm in my masculine aggressive era because y'all don't fucking listen. And then I'm the problem. You're disrespectful. You're this.
Yeah, so that's her crash out.
That's
Me
her crash
personally,
out.
my crash out, I feel like I was progressively crashing out just because my behavior in school was I was kind of wild and not gonna hold you. Like middle school, I was getting suspended all the
You
time.
told this principal.
Yeah, I told my principal to lick my penis, and in 6th grade. So
Keith.
I went home. I didn't even went home. My parents picked me up from school. They found out they picked me up from school, and then they took me home, whipped
Both
my
of them?
ass. Dad came home early. Yeah, so my father came home early from work to whip my
Was
ass.
it that day you were hiding in the closet?
No, that's another time. That sounds wild. That sounds wild. Pause. But yeah. So progressively, my behavior was just like I was just like chopping out the wood. So like the shit I did in the future wasn't really bad. In high school, I wasn't really. I settled down. And then she was crashing out. So
Yeah, it was like
the
a
spotlight
reverse.
went to her.
I was the more like obedient child, I guess, and Keith was like the more like reactive, and then it just flipped, like at one point.
That's a good perspective. I didn't really look at it like that. But
Yeah.
So what were the consequences of your crash out? Like, were there any
yeah.
consequences
Did it?
to
What do you think for yours specifically?
There was no consequence.
They just lean. No. Like obviously you gain respect. Like what'd you gain from it? After?
Yeah, I gained respect. Like there was no like, we like when we argue, it's like we argue, the next day we pretend nothing happened. Like we move on. Like life goes on. There's nothing to harp on. My mom is the one who harps. My dad's the one that's like, okay, this happened.
We move past on
We
it.
move
Yeah, it'll
past
be a
it.
screaming match, and then next day, good
What do
morning.
you want for breakfast?
food?
Yeah.
You know
What do you want for
I'm saying?
breakfast? Like it's like that. So yeah, there wasn't really any consequence. I just gained that respect.
And Dahlia, you
Why are you laughing?
You start laughing.
tell a story, man.
I'm scared to say. So, I mean, my household, my social dynamic, my family dynamic is different. So I'm half Togolese, half Haitian. So, yeah, Togo is a little bit similar to Ghanaian culture. We're French speaking, but we happen to be, or the area that my dad is from happens to be in the area that borders Ghana. So some people in Ghana speak the same language. So
Airway, by the
culturally-
way.
Yes, shout out to Awe. Shout out to people who speak Mina. So culturally, it's that same thing that we see. Doctor, lawyer, engineer. It's a heavy focus on education. It's a heavy focus on family dynamic, respect. My dad, in comparison to y'all's, like my dad immigrated more than 10 years after y'all's. So by the time that my dad came to America, he was more set in his ways, a lot more rigid and closed-minded to assimilating. Like he is who he is, right? So I think where that affected me in comparison to y'all, having known you guys and vice versa, there are a lot of things that he was just less open-minded to, right? Because he came here when he already was who he was. So for me, crashing out is much more different in comparison to y'all, because being that this person is the leader of my household, what that looks like is there's a heavy emphasis on respect in his generation for baby boomer West African men. And there is no apologizing to stuff. So I feel like my crash outs have to be very, like what y'all may not even view as a crash out, to me that is a crash out, right? So what does that look like? Going against the grain.
Yeah. So
right?
how'd you go against the grain against your parents?
I
How'd
think-
that build your character? Because that's what it does. That's
yeah,
what
it does.
It builds something
It
into
does. It does.
It's more so like a confidence boosting
Yeah,
thing,
it
you
does.
know?
So I mean, I did it in stages, and I did it really late, right? So it's like I have an older sibling, I have an older sister, and she was definitely like the pioneer, the crash out person, the doing everything against the grain. And I saw how that worked out for her, and it kind of, to be honest, like scared me. Like, okay, this is not safe to do, because I see that because she has done so, I'm seeing the repercussions that she's facing as a result. And that's not something that I wanted in my life or to emulate. So it was safer just to play it safe. That's how I looked at it, right? But you can only do that but for so long, and then at some point you have to crash out yourself. So for me, what that looked like was small phases. I think my first crash out, you can say, was honestly deciding to go to ODU. So I went to ODU. Shout out to ODU, anybody who happened to go to that university.
Shout out to
And that's a decision, you know, my father was very much against.
Why so?
You know, he didn't, for whatever reason, he didn't really like it. He just saw me a different vision for my life. Probably also heavily influenced by his social circle, his coworkers, and vice versa, and had a different value system, or envisioned me going a different direction. So me deciding to put my deposit down for ODU, or saying like essentially at the end of the day it's my decision, that was a major conflict and butt of heads. And the fact that I stood on that was just like, hey, I want to go to this school, right? I already went to high school in a predominantly white area. I don't want to go to another PWI. And
Talk more to the mic.
this was really something that was more important to me, and I really did stand on. Somebody referenced slamming the door earlier, child. I did that with that, and that did not end well for me at all.
You've done it.
Yes, and that was, I have a hole in that door now. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah. So no. So yeah, for me, like without going into details, I'm not trying to trauma dump or anything, but crashing out for me, I'm well aware of the fact that for every action, there's an equal reaction to it. And that's why I always say to people, like, you have to be aware of like, what is the dynamic that you're in, and what are the consequences of your reaction. So I'm not saying that don't stand up for yourself, don't advocate for yourself, don't vocalize what you think is important, because at a certain point, yes, you do know essentially deep down what is for you at a certain age, but I think that we all have to move smart with it.
And I feel like that just like, it's all about individualism versus, or am I gonna follow the societal norms of my culture? Because that's the thing, because a lot of people are just like, even I see it with the brown community, like the Middle Easterns as well. The influence of their parents is just insane.
It runs deep.
It runs deep. So it's not like it's coming from one side. It's not only coming from your parents. It's coming from your aunts, your uncles. It's trickling down.
Yeah,
so
from the community.
You have to, when you crash out, 100% your aunts and uncle are going to find out about it. Everybody in the church is going to find out about it the next day. So that's where the consequence comes, and that's where the confidence comes. When you stand up for your shit, you're standing on business,
and you're being authentic to yourself in regard to it, because what you're doing is you're saying like, hey, this is what I truly value, this is what means most important to me, and I'm willing to stand up for it. And you know, you're gonna face a lot of criticism in the beginning. You may even face a little bit, like, you know, people are gonna talk, maybe even a little bit of ostracized, but you have to ask yourself, like, are you willing to deal with the consequences of this action? And I think at some point in everyone's life, you absolutely need to stand up for something. And that goes for everything in life. You're not always going to have your friends being in alignment, sometimes your family, unfortunately.
Absolutely. But, and that's definitely where it translates to something like, when you're able to stand up for yourself, advocate for yourself with your family, the most important, typically the most important structure in your life is the family. If you're able to advocate for yourself during that phase of your life, you're able to do it at work.
But that's the thing that
with
gets
your
me
friends,
about, like crashing out though, because I always feel like there's a way to do something. And sometimes I feel like crash out to me has a negative connotation.
Do you think it's because of how you've seen it done? And that's what's making you feel like.
But like, no, just tell me how in your life have you stood up to your parents?
Have you stood up to me? Well, that was one. Probably the way that I did it wasn't the best approach, so it kind of fell on deaf ears, because then it went to like, okay, I didn't like the way you did that, right?
Okay, so like for instance, you're talking about your crash out happened at 24.
No, well, my last crash out,
So
I would say my real crash out. So like I said, I did it in stages. Thanks. I did it in stages. So for me, it was just like subtle things, like going against the grain. One was like, okay, going to a university that my father was not in alignment with, did not like. Number two was, I don't know, probably something a little, so it was like I had to warm myself up to that. But I think the first official, what I view as like my full on crash out, was being in a career field that was not viewed as like, this is not something that I saw for your life. This is not something that I approve of. This is not something that I support.
And what was that?
I was working at T-Mobile. People was acting like I was selling drugs. I really wasn't. No. But you know, when you come from a family that values education, and you know, they support and they put money beside this, that, and for you to graduate and then end up working in retail, it's like, what? So again, foreign parents, they have their own.
It's like they showcase you. Like they showcase. It's a showcase. Everyone wants their kid to be an engineer, so they go brag about it on WhatsApp.
It's more
bragging right.
It's more of a bragging right. Like they don't give a fuck. These niggas are not checking in on you.
It's not.
They're not saying happy birthday to you.
And once I realized that just makes me want to crash out more.
It's two things.
Because now I know you don't really love me. You just want to brag about me. So now, like I said, you don't want peace for me. I'm not bringing peace to you.
She's bold. She's bold.
Bro, what?
But I think it's a two-way thing now.
I feel like you're like a soft crash out.
I am a soft crash out.
I'm just gonna pay for this. I'm just gonna do this.
Well, now I'm loud.
But the thing is,
I'm loud, quiet.
I think it's because like you're probably louder now because you're away from them.
Yeah, because I'm no longer financially dependent, and that's my point. Because I couldn't do that because I'm dependent on this person for shelter, for food, for everything. Like I'm in this person's house. I'm dependent on this person. Now that I'm not dependent on this person though, or these people or this family dynamic, I get to move how I want to move. And this is the first time in my life I get to do things that are truly in alignment with me and be authentic to myself.
Yes.
And it's such a hard pivot and a hard transition because I've never really fully stood up for myself before. I've never fully advocated for myself. So I get what you mean when you're just like, this is why you have to do it earlier in life, because it's like, okay, now I'm in the position to do it, but it's awkward because like I never really did it before. I don't know how to comfortably do it. It's just like, okay, I crashed out now. Do we stop talking? Like, I don't know what to do.
But I think too, it also now that I'm thinking,
No, it's
it
like, I
depends
get
on-
what you're saying with the financially dependent part. Like, I feel like that's very important because like some people really rely on their parents for real. But like, that's why it's so important for you to get your own shit quick.
like to be
Yeah.
independent
Quick.
because
Not even
that
like,
is true.
Not like just working.
Yeah.
It's just working alone. They show that you can get your own shit. You don't have to rely on your parents
Yeah.
for gas money, for food.
No,
That's
for
when I feel
sure.
like you should draw the line, and then that's where you can progressively start crashing out. Like getting tattoos, getting a nose ring.
God, don't even start with that.
That's
I'm weak.
that's for me. That's my small
Yeah.
crashing out. You know what I'm saying? Like going against the grain. I go against the grain small. I'm kind of like you. I haven't told my parents to shut the fuck up or
I would.
ask my mom if she wants it next. But personally,
I think it's like a first child thing because they're bold in a way that
And that's why I was going to say, like, I feel like it depends too on like your childhood, because
Okay.
my personality is still the same. Like, I was very bold. I was very, like, I would just say things, and that has obviously transformed into who I am today. Like, I'm not, like, I obviously have more awareness, but like, I had that personality. So I think too, it depends. Like, if you're on some scary shit as a child, I'm not
you're
going to
scared.
expect.
Yeah,
you're
it might be
scary
a
for the-
personality thing. It might just
Yeah.
be a personality thing. Like, if you're a pussy, you're not gonna stand up
No,
for
you're
yourself.
really not.
Straight up. If you're a pussy, you're not gonna stand up for yourself.
I think
and
it's a
some niggas
two-way
is pussy.
thing. Yeah.
Y'all 25, y'all pussy. You're 26, y'all pussy.
30, 31,
like-
40, like, bro, come
I
on.
think it's a mixed thing for me personally. I can say this from experience. I do happen to be the younger child, and from a baby or last born perspective, I had the privilege of honestly looking at life through a cheat sheet for a really long time. Like I had somebody go before me, right? So I got to learn through somebody else's trial and error, right? I essentially got to see the path somebody else carved out, where this person succeeded, where they may have like reached some pitfalls, what they did, what they didn't do, and how my parents reacted to that. And then I got to decide based on that person's experience, okay, I don't want to experience these repercussions, so I'm going to move and maneuver this way and vice versa. So in a way, I would say that it definitely did help me out in terms of, this sounds bad, like receiving a little bit more like favorable treatment in certain ways.
Oh, because you were the goody two shoes. You were kissing up to your parents. Okay, now I see the
That's what I was
dynamic.
gonna say, like,
So you're the one like
you didn't.
your sister standing up, going out her way, breaking the walls down. You're just
Crashing
like
out,
you're hiding
right?
behind your parents, like she's crazy. No, like,
No, please. Let's not take it there. No, I wouldn't say all that, but it was more so like I saw firsthand like there are repercussions to doing certain things, and I had to ask
So
myself
what was the
everything I
repercussions
did.
that you seen your sister face?
Oh God, I don't even want to take it there. I would say more so like of an emotional thing, because I look at life through like or family dynamics through like a golden child, like black
You
sheep
think they had like
dynamic.
just a grudge towards her because she just stood up a little bit for
No,
herself?
I think that it really depends on like the parenting style and vice versa. I think that in certain households or certain family dynamics, certain personality types can butt heads, right?
Okay.
And especially if you're going against the grain, that doesn't sit well with certain people who like things done a certain type of way, right? And I just always knew from a certain age, like, as bold as that is, like I look at it as being bold, right? Something admirable. And I would say that I probably just, my personality type, I wasn't bold in that way because I didn't want to face a lot of what it came with.
And a lot of the times it comes with failing as well. Crashing out can also be you failing at something, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Disappointing them.
Yes.
You have to be comfortable with disappointing your
Disappointing.
family.
But I
So
think
that's where
yeah.
it
people
comes
have.
I think
with the trial and error. You're gonna
Yeah.
fail a couple times.
Yeah.
You're gonna fail a couple
Especially
times.
as somebody who used to be like a perfectionist, a deep fear of failure. That's not a way to live. That's not a way to live at all. And I definitely think that I went through that a lot. But after the initial, like the big disappointment, like, oh, I had such high expectations for this kid. You know, I saw this child going to law school. I had a plan. I had a vision for this. And you fell short of what I expected of you. And just that disappointment, like, again, you would think I was doing crack. And the whole time I'm working at the local T-Mobile, but whatever. But I think that once I went through that and got that failure label on me, it was just like, well, it's only up from, like, there's nothing else I can do. Like, the worst has already been done. So now I felt like it gave me full way to fully or crash out or just embrace other areas of my life, because it's like, what else is next? What title can you give me? So it's like, I might as well just do what I really want to do, because you already think of me a certain type of way.
And so I feel like that always translates to your confidence and how you take that out on other people, like with your relationships. So when that comes with your confidence that you gain from your parents, that comes into your relationship, that you see that all the time with people. The people that are meek, that can't stand up for themselves, they don't stand up for themselves with their partner. And that becomes toxic.
So that's what you're saying, like the benefit of crashing out is
crashing
out.
It really builds
impacts so much of your character. That's what I'm saying. Character development adds so much layers to your life.
Yeah.
Because I would not be the person I am today if I didn't crash out.
What type of person are you today? Like, how does it translate into your other relationships? I would still be a people pleaser. I'd still look for validation. I'm like, damn, I'm catching strays.
What? But it's true. Like, I wouldn't even respect myself. I would have no self-respect. Like, it's literally like, anyone can say anything, and then I'm feeling like shit because, I didn't make them happy. I didn't. Yeah. No, like, you have to stop caring. Them, yeah. Like, you're not going to please everyone. Like, the failure thing, I don't even look at it as failure. Like, you want this for me. Did I say I want that for me? That's a reflection of you as a failure. That's you. It's not me. You failed because you thought what you were going to do was what I wanted to do. Now look.
Now we all mad.
Now we
all losing.
Oh God. Not you trying to coerce me into being it's already done.
I'm again.
Yeah.
Don't. When he said I'm saying, when you are tired of not, like, if you're just so exhausted.
That is true, because it is exhausting, and at one point you get to the point you're just like, all right, fuck it. Like, so it does. You do get exhausted at one point, and it does feel liberating. They finally get to the point where it's just like, all right.
Do you think that's impacted your your romantic relationships, your confidence?
Ooh, the correlation
from that. Yeah. Do you think that connects?
I haven't really did deep self-reflection in terms of like how
it definitely, the way
I think it does.
It definitely, even I can for sure hold you that it impacts. For me personally,
no, I believe you, but I again, this is something I'm literally unpacking on camera. So but I haven't pinpointed how I've grown in my confidence romantically or platonically because of it.
I'm gonna tell you one thing though. If your parents aren't there for you when you fail, if they can't fuck with you when you're failing, let them go. Let them fucking go.
To be honest.
Because what? Yeah. The fuck I asked to be here?
No, I literally didn't ask to be born, and yet I'm here.
Yeah.
You better ride with me, bitch.
Stop.
Yeah, you better ride with me, mommy, daddy.
They already know. It's a boxing ring with me.
Oh. Wow.
Boxing? What the hell are you talking about?
When me and dad go at it, I'm like,
she's not serious.
I'm dead ass.
She's not serious. She's
my dad would put the gloves on too. Like,
yeah.
No.
No. I'm still bracing. Okay, you know how like Rihanna went through her whole unapologetic phase?
Mm-hmm.
So I've crashed out, but I'm still working through the fully unapologetic.
I mean, I feel like you'll grow into it very soon.
Because I feel like when you crash out, that's when like you are unapologetic.
I still feel a little.
You can still be apologetic after you crash out. Like,
that's what I'm saying. But
there's a cool down period for everything, right? So get space. Take your time, then come back and apologize.
Yeah, like I've also crashed.
You can still respect them. I personally, I feel like I'm
apologizing. I be apologizing for the.
I'm devil's advocate 24/7.
But regardless, it doesn't matter.
You can
one way or another, they're gonna look at you like the villain.
She's on the extreme side. I'm in the middle.
Wow.
And I would double down it today.
I apologize.
That happened over 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I'm not apologizing for shit because I already warned you 3 times. And then what?
Whitney's bold.
Like, who's gonna beat me up? No one.
Child.
No one. Have I been beaten up yet?
Because you
Don't
but
knock on wood. Let it happen. Don't knock on wood. Let it happen.
Not.
Let it rock. All right. Let it rock.
all right, so what's the moral of this story? That I need to be more apologetic or
Yeah.
less
Unapologetic.
Unapologetic. And that's how it leads to development.
Yeah.
Gaining that confidence by crashing on your parents builds that confidence. You don't really think, you're not really pro crash out. I'm more of a moderate. Day Day's over here tripping, talking about she's trying to fight my dad. I don't know.
I didn't say all that. I just said
She's fucking tripping.
we
What
will
the fuck?
box if it comes to that point. He will put the gloves on. I put the gloves
Yeah.
on. That's our relationship.
She's
though.
old as fuck. You'll have a heart attack. Trust me.
No, let's calm down.
But yeah, so
Yeah, I think what you're saying is own it. Is like if you're gonna do something,
Yeah.
you have to understand
Double down.
that. Yeah, double down on it, sit in it. People are not gonna always
and
like
it
it.
1000% builds character, guys. This is all about building character. You're gonna fail. You're gonna fuck up. Fuck it. That's life. That's trial and error.
Fuck it, we ball.
And that's it. Let's wrap it
Gotta
up.
Say something.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining us on Trial and Errors episode 1.
Thank you
It's been
guys. Please
fun.
like and
Thank
subscribe.
you.
Like, subscribe, share, tell the world, tell your friends, tell your family.
Shout out to everyone that couldn't make it here, even though some people got like kind of let go. We still love you. Shout out to Nicole for the logo.
Yeah, shout out
She did her
Nicole.
Thank
shit.
you, Nicole.
Hire her. We're gonna link her shit
We're gonna put
right
it somewhere.
here. Yeah.
And yeah, that's
Follow
a
her.
wrap. Yeah.
Oh my god, that was so good. I think that was a beautiful first podcast because it really dived into your background. You see that conclusion? You see that the conclusion? We got that. We got this out there. Get the fuck out.
I didn't expect to like share that.